In this video, we are going to be taking a look at quadrilaterals. Now, the essential question that we are going to try to answer, that I want you to write in your math journal, is how can you classify and compare quadrilaterals? So throughout this video, we'll try to unlock that problem. So we're going to unlock the problem on page 449 in your math book. It says a seating chart for a baseball field has many four-sided figures, or quadrilaterals. What types of quadrilaterals can you find in the seating chart? Okay, so we're also going to take a look at the question right underneath it. It says there are 5 special types of quadrilaterals, some things that we need to think about. You can classify quadrilaterals by their properties, such as parallel sides and perpendicular sides. Parallel lines that are always the same distance apart. Perpendicular lines are lines that intersect to form 4 right angles. So you want to write down this part in your math journal as well. Okay, so in order to unlock this problem, we need to start thinking about some things that we know as far as quadrilaterals. So it says complete the sentence that describes each type of quadrilateral. So it says a general quadrilateral has 4 sides and also 4 angles. Okay, so we can see, first of all, a parallelogram. We can see that the opposite sides, what I mean by opposite side, which is right here, that's an opposite, and from there to there, top to bottom, left to right, are opposite sides. So we'll write sides here. Okay, that are, and we can see they are congruent. Now remember, congruent means same exact size. So parallelogram has opposite sides that are congruent along with being parallel. Okay, now if we take a look at a rectangle is a special parallelogram. Okay, and we can see that a rectangle has 4 right angles. We can see all of that right here. 1, 2, 3, 4. And 2 pairs, we can see 2 pairs here of perpendicular sides. I'll just write perp here. You need to write perpendicular there. Okay, now remember, perpendicular lines are lines that intersect to form 4 right angles. Okay, so we can see that 2 pairs of perpendicular sides with a rectangle. Okay, as we continue to talk about quadrilaterals, we want to think about a rhombus, and a rhombus is a special parallelogram with 4 congruent sides. Okay, however, we're not talking about right angles or perpendicular lines or anything else like that. Okay, but just 4 congruent sides. In other words, each side is equal in length to itself. Okay, to each other there. Next one is square. A square is a special parallelogram. We have 4 congruent sides. Okay, and also 4 right angles as well. Okay, you can see it's a little bit different than a rectangle. Even though a rectangle has 4 right angles, it does not have 4 congruent sides, so a little bit different there. Okay, trapezoid, we can see is a quadrilateral with exactly 1 pair of parallel sides. Started right 4, 1 pair of parallel. Okay, so 1 pair of parallel sides there. Okay, so we can take a look at all of this and we can answer this question. So the types of quadrilaterals you can find in the seating chart of the field are, let's take a look at this question here again. Okay, so we can see a lot of different types of quadrilaterals. We can see parallelograms, we could see rectangles, we can see a rhombus, we can see a square, we can see a trapezoid, we can see all different types of parallelograms in this seating chart. Okay, and if you just take a look at that within your math book, each section does represent a different type of parallelogram. Now we're going to take a look at the right-hand side of page 450 in your math book, and we're going to look at some attributes of some of these parallelograms. Okay, first of all,
we're going to fill it in by either using always, never, or sometimes. So the first one, a rhombus is sometimes a square. So we'll put that right up here. A parallelogram is sometimes a rectangle. A rhombus is always a parallelogram. And it's also important to think about the attributes of a square, a rectangle, and a parallelogram. Okay, and also the attributes of these different types of parallelograms as well, rhombus and trapezoid and so on. Okay, we can see that a trapezoid, we know, is never a parallelogram, and a square is always a rhombus. Now we want to talk about the explanation part. It says explain why the circle for a parallelogram does not intersect the circle for trapezoids, and we can understand and we know that a parallelogram has two pairs of parallel sides, and a trapezoid has exactly one pair of parallel sides, so those would never really have much in common at all other than being quadrilaterals. Okay, now what I do want you to do at the bottom of page 450, it says draw a quadrilateral with 4 pairs of perpendicular sides and 4 congruent sides. You will need to understand what perpendicular means within this video, which you can go back and take a look at. All right, and it is important that you also understand congruent sides. Remember, same side, same length. Okay, so I want you to draw that picture at the bottom of page 450. When you press play, I will talk about what your picture should look like. Okay, your picture should have represented a square. Whether it was a large square or small square, you should have drawn a picture of a square, because we know that a square does have 4 pairs of perpendicular sides and also 4 congruent sides as well. Okay, now what I want you to do is complete these 2 problems at your seat, and when you press play, I'll have the answers for you. You will need to have a roller out and measure the different sides here on page 451. Okay, your answers should reflect what I have on this page. Are any of the sides congruent? Yes, they are congruent. Okay, how many right angles, if any, does a quadrilateral have? It does not have any right angles. Okay, either obtuse or acute angles with a quadrilateral. And how many pairs of parallel sides, if any, does a quadrilateral have? And there are 2 pair. Okay, we can see this is a pair of parallel sides, and also this would be a pair of parallel sides as well. So we could say that the quadrilateral ABCD is a parallelogram. Now what you will need to do all on your own is classify the quadrilateral in as many ways as possible. You can use quadrilateral, parallelogram, rectangle, rhombus, square, or trapezoid. Okay, and you can use all of these, 1 or 2 of these, however many that would be needed to classify your shape. So I want you to try this problem out. When you press play, I will have the answer for you. Okay, and here are the answers for this square. Okay, we could say it's a quadrilateral, parallelogram, rectangle, even though not a lot of people think this would be a rectangle. It is. Think about just the definition of a rectangle. Okay, it's a parallelogram with 4 right angles, which we have here. Okay, and also 4 pairs of perpendicular lines as well. Okay, also a rhombus and also a square. Let's try this next shape out. Once again, classify it as many ways as possible. When you press play, I will have the answer for you. Okay, we can classify this shape as being a quadrilateral, parallelogram, and also a rhombus. Let's try a couple more. I want you to classify this in as many ways as possible. When you press play, I will have the answer for you. Okay, obviously, once again, it is a quadrilateral. Okay, but the key thing that sets this apart, it is a trapezoid. Okay, so you should have quadrilateral and trapezoid here. And remember, with the trapezoid, it has just 1 pair of parallel sides. Okay, and then that's it. You can see these 2 sides would be parallel. I want you to think through this problem all by yourself, and then I'll have the answer for you. It says a quadrilateral has exactly 2 congruent sides. Which quadrilateral types could it be? Okay, which quadrilaterals could it not be? So think through this problem. When you press play, I will have the answer for you. Okay, so here's the answer that you might have. It could be a general quadrilateral or trapezoid, so either of those 2 would work. However, it could not be a square, rectangle, parallelogram, or rhombus. Okay, so we want to take a look at this hot problem. We need to figure out the error. It says a quadrilateral has exactly 3 congruent sides. Davis claims that the figure must be a rectangle. Why is his claim incorrect? And I want you to also draw within your book on page 452 an explanation of your answer, but I will just have the explanation of the answer in written form for you on the video. So I want you to not only explain it in your book, but also draw it as well. Okay, here's a possible explanation that you need to at least come close to with the error. So in a quadrilateral with exactly 3 congruent sides, either the non-congruent side isn't parallel to its opposite side and there is one right angle, or it is a trapezoid with no right angle. So it is important to understand that just having 3 congruent sides does definitely mess this up in order to be a rectangle. So to wrap this video up, we want to talk about that essential question: how can you classify and compare quadrilaterals? Okay, and let's look at the answer to this. So the properties that I use or we use include the number of sides, the types of angles, and the relationships shared by opposite sides and opposite angles. So there are a lot of different ways and a lot of different factors that go into classifying and comparing quadrilaterals. Okay, so this concludes the video. If you have any questions about quadrilaterals, please come and see me.